This place once had me caught in a traffic jam between a motorbike and a donkey. It's a country of contrasts. Vibrant colors cast against a dusty backdrop. Humble exteriors hide beautifully grand and intricate interiors. Located at the crossroads of three worlds, it's a culture that melts Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. Come get lost within the souks and the medinas of this enchanted land with me, all the while dreaming of Tagine.
Attention, all passengers on flight 152, please report to gate 47.
Hello, bonjour, and salam, and welcome to the Modern Odyssey. I am Shelby Thorgard, and in this video we're going to be exploring Morocco. Morocco is located here at the northwestern tip of Africa, just south of Spain and Portugal. My first thought about going to Morocco is, who am I going to go with? I didn't really know of anybody that wanted to go with me. And I didn't want to go there by myself. So I found a travel group that was going there, and they were having a Black Friday sale. So I just said, fuck it, I'm going to go. I had joined like a tour group for the day, but this is a 10-day long adventure, and I had never done that before. But I'm going to tell you, it actually turned out to be really cool. So it lasted for 10 days. They covered all of the accommodations, some of your food, not all of it, transportation to the different cities. It did not include your flight though. You have to get that yourself. Your accommodations are shared with somebody, with a stranger. You don't have to, you can pay extra money to not share them. And it was kind of akin to staying in a dorm room, you know, when you're a freshman in college. The tour also included a tour guide, which was really helpful in bridging the cultural and language divide. The main language in Morocco is Arabic, although in Marrakech and its surrounding area, many people also speak French due to the colonization of Morocco by the French in the early 1900s. Outside the cities, the indigenous people of Northern Africa have their own language called Amazigh, and some people do speak English. Two basic words that you should know are salam for hello and shukran for thank you. Do you need a tour group to visit Morocco? Absolutely not. I just felt more comfortable going with people than going solo by myself. So my Moroccan road trip began with a flight into Casablanca, the epicenter for international arrivals and business. My red-eye flight arrived at 7 a.m. and luckily I could check into the hotel at 11 a.m. and I promptly napped for a few hours before my roommate showed up, whom I had never met before, and she turned out to be super cool, thank goodness. We decided to wander around a bit on our first day and get a feel for the largest city in Morocco. One place that is a must-see in Casablanca is the Hassan II Mosque. It's the only mosque non-Muslims are allowed to enter. It's one of the largest mosques in the world and can hold up to 25,000 people. The intricate details and the mosaics on the walls and the ceiling give you a taste of what the rest of the country has to offer. This place is pretty incredible inside. By the way, my pictures do this place no justice. Here's me inside. I think I look pretty good for barely sleeping on my red-eye flight and not really feeling so great. On a side note, I learned that women have to pray behind the men or on the second floor here because women can be distracting to men when we're bending over to pray. Also, if you want to get a taste of a Medina, check out the souks in the old Medina of Casablanca. A Medina is the old part of a town or city. It's typically walled and contains narrow streets, fountains, palaces, souks, and mosques. What's a souk? A souk is an Arab marketplace similar to a flea market. So inside of Medina is where you might get into a traffic jam within the narrow alleyways and streets with donkeys, motorbikes, people, and/or carts. Wherever your first stop is in Morocco, get some local currency, which is the Moroccan dirham. Make sure you check out the exchange rate for your currency so you know how much things cost. Fun fact, this is a closed currency, meaning you cannot get Moroccan cash until you land in the country and go to a bank or cash exchange. You will need to do this as many places in Morocco only take cash, especially small shops and taxis. Some places do accept credit cards, but it's better to have cash in case you need to negotiate. I prefer to get money using an ATM with my debit card, one that does not charge foreign transaction fees, and also one that will refund you any ATM fees you might incur. Just make sure your bank card will work in this country or any other country. I had a bad experience using a bank card in Morocco that was supposed to work, but it just took money out of my account continuously without actually giving me any cash. I had a little mini meltdown when I couldn't get any money, but luckily my newfound friends from the travel group loaned me some, which I immediately Venmo'd them back because I don't like to owe people money. When I got home, I had to file a claim with my bank because I was missing $500. I switched to a Schwab card and I've had no issues since. Also, bring a credit card, also with no transaction fees, just in case you get into a bind like I did. I like to travel with the Chase Sapphire card to rack up points for travel in the future, but to each their own. Moving on, after Casablanca, my road trip began with a 5-hour drive to the most charming town in Morocco, Chefchaouen, aka the Blue City, the Blue Pearl. I was completely enchanted with this small, picturesque city in the mountains where almost everything is painted blue. Why? Some say it resembles heaven, others say to repel mosquitoes, others because of its calming effects. It's an awesome city to wander around and get lost amongst the blue-wash buildings, doorways, and alleyways. They really do make for some awesome photos. Also, be sure to hike about 30 minutes up to the Spanish mosque at the top of the hill to watch the sunset over the city. It's the best place to watch it, so it's usually crowded with tourists and locals trying to sell something. Also have a flashlight for the hike back down. If you're an adventurous eater, perhaps try a camel burger at Café Clock. It was a little gamey, but still pretty good. And remember, always drink bottled water in this country, just so you don't get sick. Let's talk a little bit more about the food here. Morocco is known for its delicious spices. Cumin, coriander, cinnamon, saffron, add in some prunes and dates, oh my! I ate tagine almost every single day, especially with prunes. Tagine is by far the most iconic dish in Morocco, named after the clay pot that it's cooked in. Another iconic dish in Morocco is pastilla. It's a flaky pastry that if it's made right, it's flaky, meaty, and sweet. If it's made wrong, it's dry and belongs in the trash. Up next on my road trip, day 4, a 3-hour drive to Volubilis. Roman ruins from the 3rd century and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It served as a major Roman outpost in North Africa for several centuries until it was abandoned in the 11th century. If you're a history buff, enjoy. Make sure your phone and camera are charged up for pictures. In order to charge your electronics, you may want to bring an adapter with you depending on where you're from. The power plugs and sockets in Morocco are Type C and E. After the ruins, we drove an hour and a half to the city of Fez. Fez has a rich history that dates back thousands of years and is the spiritual center of Morocco. Fez is divided into 2 main parts, the Old Medina and the New City. Its Medina is by far the largest in the whole country, a labyrinth of narrow alleyways and winding streets, home to a vibrant and bustling city with lively markets and a thriving food scene. Fez is famous for its tanneries, where leather is processed. Just a warning for the squeamish, I will tell you, you will see animal hides on the streets outside the Medina walls and it's going to smell foul. You have been warned. If you decide to tour a tannery, you'll be given fresh mint leaves to put by your nose to mask the smell. If you can get there earlier in the morning before the sun comes out, it might help reduce the stench. The tanning process in the Fez tanneries is still done by hand using traditional techniques and tools. You'll learn all about the traditional process of dyeing and tanning the hides of cows, sheep, goats, and camels by a process of soaking them in a series of liquids made from various mixtures of cow urine, pigeon feces, quicklime, salt, and water, which help to clean and soften the tough skins. Now just imagine that smell combined with the carcasses. You're welcome. Afterwards, they bring you into the store to check the leather goods, coats, purses, wallets. If you do purchase anything, remember to bargain. Bargaining is a cultural norm in Morocco, and it's expected in many marketplaces and taxis. It's part of the shopping experience. When you ask how much, the answer is typically way more than the item is worth. I enjoyed the sellers bringing out a calculator and putting the price in there and us going back and forth. They may give you faces of astonishment or insult, so always remember to do it with a smile because it's a game. Also, be prepared to walk away if they don't budge. Don't worry, they'll chase you down. Exploring the Medina of Fez is a labyrinth. The maze-like layout can be challenging to navigate. So get a guide to show you around or use Google Maps. Just don't look like you're using Google Maps because then people will know you have no idea where you're going and then you might get solicited to buy goods or services. Speaking of Google Maps, you'll need phone service here. I have Google Fi, which worked like a charm in Morocco. If you don't have a reliable service in Morocco, buy a local SIM or get an eSIM. I found using Google Maps invaluable to navigating the Medinas and not getting harassed. Use that service to point you in the direction of a local ceramics factory. You'll get a fascinating look at the centuries-old art form as you watch the experts use their hands to transform clay into beautiful works of art. Of course, this is an exit to the gift shop kind of place, but if you buy anything, at least you know you'll be supporting local craftsmen and getting an authentic, handmade ceramic work of art instead of something made in China. Another cool place to check out is the clothing and textile area in the Medina. It's very colorful here, just watch where you walk as fabric dye may be flowing in the street. Other cool places to check out within Fez include the Al Atarin Madrasa, a shining example of intricate Islamic architecture built in the 14th century. The amount of painstaking detail in this place is insane, as it is beautiful. There's also the Museum Fundik Al Nijaran, a beautifully restored 18th century inn for traveling merchants. You can go up to the roof to get a higher view of the ancient city. It's not that pretty up here, but these rooftop diners don't really seem to mind. And lastly, take pictures at the Golden Gates in front of the Royal Palace. You can't open any of the 7 huge brass doors to sneak a peek inside, but you can appreciate the awe-inspiring doors' details. I can tell you Moroccans do love to make elaborately beautiful entrances. My last night in Fez, my group and I were lucky enough to have dinner and entertainment at someone's home in Fez. I got dragged out onto the dance floor with this silly hat. There was also a lady giving people henna at the house. Apparently, the longer you leave the ink on, the longer the dye will last on your skin. Our guide told us that we need to be very careful about the black henna found in the Medina because it could be fake henna and can cause a bad reaction on your skin. In Fez, I stayed at my first riad. A riad is a traditional Moroccan house or place that has been converted into a boutique hotel. Now, everyone wants to stay in a riad until they actually stay in a riad. They are unique, but they may not align with typical Western hotel standards, if you catch my drift. My 5-star riad looked gorgeous at first sight. A beautiful courtyard to eat breakfast, an indoor pool surrounded by intricate mosaics and stained glass, and an outdoor bar with a terrace. Then I started looking closely at the details. There was mold growing in the bathroom. The towels were hard and crunchy and smelled strongly of soap from, I'm assuming, being hand washed and then line dried. Other rooms that I visited smelled strongly of mildew as well and had visible mold. The shower was a tub with a shower hose and no curtain. Good thing I'm in good shape and flexible because I had to squat down in the shower to wash myself and not spray the entire room. Some of this is obviously not a huge deal, but coming from the US to a supposed luxury riad, I was disappointed. My guide did tell us that a 5-star here may only be a 2-star back home. Don't get me wrong, there are some super fancy hotels here that are on par with Western standards, but staying at other guest houses, you may need to prepare yourself for non-Western toilets. The more I travel, the more I keep seeing these. Do your exercises and some yoga because sometimes there is no bar to hang on to, and I would hate to fall into one of those. Blech. I'm not saying all riads and guest houses are like this, but this was my experience, so do your due diligence in researching your potential accommodations. The plus side of my riad is it did have alcohol, and I do like me some wine. Now, as this is a Muslim country, many locals do not drink alcohol. If you don't drink alcohol, you can skip this part. In some areas, especially outside of Casablanca and Marrakech, you may have a hard time finding and buying alcohol. I suggest stopping by the duty-free when you land to grab a bottle of something or bring airplane bottles from home and pick up some mixers on your trip. Since booze are a luxury item here, mostly for tourists, it's not as cheap as you might think. At my riad in Fez, a glass of wine was $9 and a beer was $8. Cheaper than New York City, but I was expecting it to be half the price. Tea is the beverage of choice in Morocco. If you're lucky and make friends with some locals, they'll invite you over for some awesome mint tea. It's made with green tea, fresh mint leaves, and sugar. If your jam is fresh squeezed orange juice, it's always fresh in Morocco. So inside an old Medina, I ordered one without looking to my left to see what containers they were being poured into. And to my left was a huge pile of empty, probably used water bottles, you know, the ones that you buy in the store. And that's what my OJ was put into. Needless to say, unsure of the cleanliness of the said OJ, I could not enjoy it. Moral of the story is, see what they're pouring your drink into when you order something on the street. After leaving Fez, my tour headed toward Midlet in the Middle Atlas Mountains. We passed through cedar forests, which are home to the Barbary apes, North Africa's only monkey. Aren't they cute? And they like peanuts. Near Midlet, we visited a farm to have lunch with a local family and watch a bread-making demonstration where the bread is cooked in a clay oven. Later that day, we checked out the Atlas Mountains. We went for a short hike and did a little photo shoot. It felt so nice to stretch our legs after sitting in a van for hours. At the end of our trail, we reached a Berber community and stopped by to have tea. When we left, a group of children came towards us, presumably wanting candy. Our guide told us not to give them anything, so we didn't. Most of them didn't say anything, and they just smiled, but one child gave us the finger. She clearly did not like us. We stayed in Midlet at an unnotable establishment, but they did have beer and wine. Here's a tip for you. Buy some beer or wine at your hotel if possible to bring to your next destination. There will be a bonfire, and who wouldn't want to sip a glass of wine or beer in the middle of the Sahara under the stars? After 5 hours of driving, we arrived at the Sahara Desert village of Merzouga. To get to the desert camp, we had to hop in a four-wheel drive car and race over the dunes. When we arrived at our campsite, we saw an inviting red carpet laid out in the middle of the tents. There were real beds and a bathroom with running water. The main attraction here is a camel into the sunset. It was a bit hazy out that day, but the sunset was beautiful nonetheless. On our way back, I felt bad for my camel, so I walked it back to camp. In the future, I will not be participating in animal tourism again. I don't know how well cared for the camels are, but you make up your own mind. Afterwards, the man with the camel set up to sell us some Saharan sand. I didn't buy any though. Besides a camel ride, you can go sandboarding, ride an ATV, or even do some cartwheels in the Sahara. In the evening, there's a bonfire in the middle of the tents where musicians play their instruments for the guests, and we all chill under the Saharan sky. Cheers if you brought beer or wine. Sunrises in the desert are supposed to be magical. Unfortunately, it was a cloudy morning, so this was my sunrise. My desert fun was brought to an abrupt halt in the morning when I discovered the water was no longer flowing in our bathroom. No sink, no flushing toilets, no shower. Apparently, someone left the sink running all night and used up all the water. Don't be that person. After a less than enthusiastic ride back to stop at the closest bathroom, we continued on to Torga Gorge, a series of limestone river canyons with cliffs reaching almost 1,000 feet. It's popular for hikers and rock climbers. I would have loved to have climbed one of those canyon walls, but this wasn't that type of trip. We saw some donkeys and a few locals selling some things. It would have been nice to hike a little bit more here, but I was on a tour group and we had a schedule to keep. After a 4-hour drive on some windy roads, we spent the night in Skora. In the morning, we headed to Ait Benhaddou, a fortified village in the High Atlas Mountains. A UNESCO World Heritage Site, Ait Benhaddou is known for its stunning kasbahs, which are traditional Moroccan houses made of brick and wood, surrounded by high walls for protection against the harsh desert climate. The kasbahs in Ait Benhaddou are some of the most preserved examples of this architecture in Morocco. and have been used as filming locations for several movies, such as Gladiator and Game of Thrones. Visitors to the village can explore the narrow streets and alleys of the kasbahs, which are filled with shops selling local crafts and souvenirs. Rug making is serious business in this area of Morocco, and here you can watch women make them by hand. Of course, they're going to try and sell you the rugs as well. While you're here, you can also take a cooking class and learn how to make your very own tagine. One of the highlights of visiting Ait Benhaddou is watching the sunset over the kasbahs, which apparently creates a magical display of colors and shadows. We were on to our next big city, so I unfortunately did not get to experience this. Ait Benhaddou can be a day trip from Marrakech for those that want to check out the famous kasbahs in Morocco's high Atlas Mountains. The last stop on my road trip was Marrakech, a bustling, frenetic city where you should definitely watch where you're going. Outside the Medina walls, the streets are a delicate dance between cars, motorbikes, and donkeys, with an air of exhaust fumes and brake dust. Luckily, you don't smell that inside the Medina. Inside the Medina, it's home to a labyrinth of narrow streets and alleyways, where the locals sell you everything they can imagine with a who's it and what's it galore. You name it, they probably have it. At the heart of Marrakech's Medina is the main square, Jemaa El Fna. If you come in the morning, you'll see the merchants with their donkeys and carts setting up their stalls for the day. Amongst the stalls and restaurants, you'll see entertainers vying for attention, street performers, poets, musicians, and snake charmers. As the sun sets, the square really comes alive as more people descend upon the square. Beware of pickpockets in this area though, especially at night. If you'd like a quieter Medina experience, go in the morning when the markets are just about to open and enjoy the calm before the chaos. I recommend wandering through the narrow streets and alleyways, checking out the local shops or museums, and palaces like Dar el Baka, built in the early 1900s and now has a cool coffee shop. There's no shortage of palaces here. The Bahia Palace, meaning brilliant, is a stunning 19th century palace that was intended to be the greatest palace of its time. The palace is filled with intricate mosaics and vibrant colors that reflect Moroccan culture. These places offer a glimpse into the opulent lifestyle of some Moroccans of the past, wanting to flaunt their wealth and position. Today, they're both tourist attractions, attracting many travelers. Another beautiful place to check out in Marrakech is the garden created by French painter Jacques Majorelle in the 1920s. The garden is filled with exotic plants, fountains, and vibrant colors, and contains a museum dedicated to the Berber culture of Morocco. Make sure you get tickets ahead of time because you might not be able to just walk in. Marrakech is also a foodie paradise. I highly recommend Dar Moa. As soon as you walk in, it feels like you've been transported to another place. The inside is such a contrast to the street outside, and the food is amazing. I went there for lunch and had the place all to myself. I was wondering while I was there if they let anybody swim in this pool. Anyway, they had wine. Walking around Marrakech, you might notice the monolithic structure in the skyline. It's the Koutoubia Mosque, the largest one in the city, erected in the 12th century. However, unlike the mosque in Casablanca, this one you can't visit unless you're Muslim. Being a Muslim country, Moroccans celebrate Ramadan. This might be something you want to consider when you're planning your trip. It will be a different experience than any other time of the year. Ramadan is a holy month where the Muslims fast from dusk till dawn, letting nothing pass their lips. If you eat or drink anything, it's respectful to do it in a restaurant out of the public eye. Once the sun sets though, so do their eyes on what they call breakfast. Do not get in the way of the locals eating their breakfast. They are hungry people. Also, being a woman and being there during such a religious time, it's especially important to respect their culture and dress modestly, covering your shoulders all the way down to your knees. Many shops and restaurants may also be closed due to this holiday, or they will open later in the evening to accommodate the culture. Enjoy the calls to prayer, which you'll hear in many places 5 times a day. If you want to know how the locals relax, check out a local hammam. A hammam is a bathhouse where visitors can indulge in steam baths, exfoliation, and a massage. It was lovely. It's a prominent feature of the culture here. Just know you'll get stripped down to your underwear and you'll be placed in a large shower room with whomever you're with. We were given almost see-through underwear, but I assume you can bring a bathing suit. They will wash you and rub you and scrub you until your skin is about to fall off. All with your boobs hanging out, so be comfortable with whomever you go with. The ladies at my hammam just violently threw water on us, not like this gentle rinsing you see here. Since I was in a travel group, I had pre-arranged transportation around the whole country, and we were pulled over once because somebody was not wearing their seatbelt. They take that very seriously around here and they will give you a ticket. You could drive a car or rent a motorcycle if you have the time and energy. Trains, buses, and planes connect the major cities. In the cities, taxis are the main mode of transportation outside the souks. Taxis are supposed to be metered. However, once you hire one, they'll try to bargain with you instead of turning it on. You'll get a better deal with them if you have them turn on their meter. If you already know the price, bargain down to your known price. We got into a taxi that started at 400 dirham and it went down to 200 dirham, but he wouldn't turn on his meter. We found a taxi that would use his meter and it was 92 dirham, which is roughly 92 cents in America. To play devil's advocate, should I be arguing with somebody over $3 with a man that probably needs the money more than I do? That's your call. Bargaining is a game in this country and you will be taken advantage of if you let your guard down. I was in Morocco during Ramadan and I did not experience the catcalling and sexual harassment I've heard so much about. Perhaps it's because it was the holy month and men were being more pious than normal, maybe because they were fasting and didn't have that energy. In any case, I'm not going to complain. I did dress appropriately and with respect for the Muslim culture, covering my shoulders down to my knees. I would have men yell at me in the souks and ask me where I was going, but I would just ignore them. To look like I wasn't lost, I would use my Google Maps on silent, and I'd only get yelled at if they saw that's what I was doing. I also avoided eye contact, I wore sunglasses whenever possible, and I wore a fake wedding ring, just in case. When should you come to Morocco? Well, that all depends on you, your time, and your budget. Overall, autumn and spring are best, while the high season starts November until March. I went in April and it didn't rain once while I was there. The temperature can vary depending on where you are. The desert at night was much cooler than Marrakech. Marrakech was very hot, 95 degrees hot. I'm sure it's even hotter in the summer, which is their low season, and that's why everything is cheaper. So bring a bathing suit and book a place with a pool. A little aside here for the whole of Morocco. This is for my animal lovers. Morocco is filled with stray cats and dogs, and it can be heartbreaking to see some of them, especially when they're not cared for. Some countries may be used to this, but being from the US, this is something that I don't see that often. I just say this for you to mentally prepare yourself. There's so much more to this country, and I'm sure I didn't do it justice. I'd love to go back to visit different areas and explore Marrakech more, visit the coastal cities, and wander the streets of Chefchaouen again. I really hope this information was helpful. Visit my website for more information on Morocco and other destinations. You can find the link in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time on The Modern Odyssey.